Hi everyone. Okay, let's continue on with chapter 6, the cost volume profit analysis. I started talking about this in the last video and ended with that the operating profit, or the net income as you're probably familiar with it from accounting, equals total revenue minus operating expenses. Okay, so total revenue is our total amount of sales. So if we sold, let's stick with the highlighters again. If we sold 2 million highlighters and we sold them to customers for $1 a piece, then our total revenue is going to be $2 million. Okay, minus operating expenses. And our operating expenses consist both of our variable cost and our fixed cost. So our variable cost is what changes in proportion to the number of units that we sell. Okay, so 50 cents per highlighter multiplied by 2,000 highlighters, or 2 million, I can't remember what I said. Let's stick with the 2,000 highlighters. So that would be $1,000 in variable cost. Okay. And then our fixed costs, if you think back to the last video, are things such as salaries or rent or property taxes, costs that you're going to be charged no matter how many sales you make. Okay. And then the selling price is the actual price per unit that we sell it to our customers for. So the marker or the highlighter, for example, we were talking about a selling price of $1 each. Okay. So at the break even point, it's exactly that. You break even. This value for operating profit is 0. It means that our total revenue of, say, $2,000 equals our operating expenses that maybe with the fixed costs and the variable costs is $2,000. Okay. So every company aims to at least break even. Nobody wants to break even, but they want to at least break even. They want it to at least be an operating profit of 0 or greater. Nobody wants to have a loss. Okay. Okay. So the revenue and cost function. So the revenue function, the total revenue, or TR, equals S, okay, S being the selling price per unit, multiply that by your X, which is the number of products or units that you sell. Okay, so your sales volume. So if we sell 2,000 highlighters, it's 2,000 for your X, and the S is $1. So therefore your total revenue would be $2,000. The cost function, okay, the sum of the total variable costs plus your fixed cost. So your variable costs per unit. So we talked about the highlighter variable cost of 50 cents per unit. X is the number of units that we sell. So if we sell 2,000 highlighters, that is VC multiplied by X. That part would work out to 1,000, VC being 0.5, X being 2,000 units. So that would work out to 1,000. And then plus any fixed costs that we have to cover. So we could be looking at fixed costs for a monthly basis, or we could be looking at fixed costs for an annual basis. It depends on what time frame we are talking about. And that would, of course, be the same with our total revenue. Because if you think back to accounting, sometimes when we were creating income statements, we'd create them for a month or we'd create them for the full year for a company. So net income equals our total revenue minus our total costs. And at break even, net income equals 0, right? That's the same as our operating profit. Net income, operating profit, Same thing, just a different name. Okay, so there are 3 different methods we can use, and we're not going to graph, even though it does fall in line with the linear equations. We're going to look at the revenue and cost function, which is the algebraic approach, and we're going to talk about the contribution margin approach as well. Okay, I want to look at the graph. So if we did graph it, you can see where the 2 lines, meaning the total costs, which is your red line, and your total revenue, which is your green line, where those 2 intersect, that's your break-even point. Prior to that, if you sell less than that, you're going to have a loss. If you sell more than that, you're going to have a profit. Okay? And a lot of times, if you're working in an organization and you are talking about the numbers of an organization, a lot of time creating a graph is great as a visual to show, say, the management team. Okay, so keep that in mind, especially with Excel, if you are creating financial statements or information for a management team in Excel. You can always use Excel's functions to create the picture because it's so much easier to visualize. Okay, so if we set net income to 0, which is our break even, then X will be the break even sales volume. Okay, so this is the break-even formula. Okay, so what we're doing here is where we've got S minus variable cost, so that's per unit. So if we sell 1, what is the selling price for 1 unit minus the variable cost for 1 unit? Multiply that by the overall number of units that we sell minus our fixed cost. But we could multiply it out, okay? So then the break-even formula would be SX minus VCX minus FC. So that would be SX would be our total sales volume in dollars. And then you want to subtract off the variable cost multiplied by the number of units that we sell. So that would be our total variable cost minus our total fixed costs. Okay. But the reason we do it this way and we take the X out of it and just have S minus VC is because we can figure out or solve for X, which is our break-even volume. We want to know how many we can sell is again by taking that equation and changing it around to isolate X by itself. And the way we do that is in the end, we will have fixed cost as our numerator divided by selling price per unit minus variable cost per unit. So if we take our total fixed costs and divide that by the difference of your selling price minus your variable cost per unit, then we will figure out how many units that we have to sell in order to break even. Okay. Let's try this one. So we've got the information from Chuck's delivery service that we talked about earlier, okay, in the first video. So we want to recall that we decided that our selling price per delivery is $60. Our variable costs, when we went through and after we figured out what the variable costs were per delivery, worked out to $13.90. And then our fixed cost, when we did it by month, we figured out that our fixed costs, and if you don't remember, go back and watch the video or go back and look at that part of the PowerPoints. We figured out that our fixed costs were $66.40 per month. What is the break-even number of deliveries? So in order to figure out what our break-even volume is, or how many deliveries we have to make in order to cover all of our fixed costs, we take our fixed costs, 6,640, divided that by our selling price per unit or per delivery, minus the $13.90 variable cost per delivery. Okay, so we solve for our bottom, which is $46.10. So that's our fixed cost of $66.40 divided by $46.10, and that gives us 144.03 deliveries, or 144 deliveries in total to cover all of our costs. So the aim for this organization would, of course, be to have more than 144 deliveries so that they can have an operating profit, or, as you know, also known as net income. Okay. So if Chuck does make 144 deliveries in the month, what's the sales revenue going to be? Well, we know that the selling price, or the sales price that we charge our customers, is $60 per delivery. And if we make 144 deliveries, then our sales revenue, or total revenue for that month, is going to be $8,640. Okay. I'm going to end it here, and I will create another video for you. Thanks, everyone.